Hi guys, welcome back. Today we're going to visit with Kara from 24 Karat, and she's going to be talking about why she overeats. And while she does, let's see if this rings true for some of you.
Hello, it's day 264, and I want to talk about why I overeat, part 1. This is a really complicated subject for me. It's something that I've only just started unpacking this year, so I definitely don't have all the answers. But I do know that back when I was dieting, even back then, I sensed the disconnect between my actual life that I was living and the meals that I was preparing for myself to fuel that life. For example, I would wake up some mornings and be absolutely starving, but it didn't matter because all I could eat was 200 calories of cottage cheese because that's what I had put in my calorie tracker for that day. Or sometimes I'd come home from work starving, but again, it didn't matter because it was chicken and cucumbers that night, 400 calories, never mind what you actually are craving. Never mind if what you really want is a salad, it's chicken and cucumbers, and that's the only thing you can eat. Back then, when I realized that my meal plans and my diets weren't working, I always felt like it was a problem with myself, that I wasn't disciplined enough to be skinny and hot and fit. But now that I've been doing intuitive eating, I've noticed that I'm a lot more lenient with myself when it comes to what I'm actually eating during the day. But I don't think that it's a secret to anyone that I'm still overeating. You can look at me and tell that there's still a lot of just extra fat that isn't really serving any purpose on my body, and that's a result of consuming more calories than I'm expending during the day. That's just a pure scientific thing. So when I examine my actual reasons for overeating, I find that most of the answers lie in my old binge triggers. I'm not binging as much as I used to by any means. I haven't binged, I would say, for about 4 months now, which is amazing for me. And, clap, clap, good job all around. But the thing is, I can still tell that there is a lot of unhealthy thought processes around the things that used to make me binge. A huge trigger for me back in the day was unexpected food. This would be like my boss bringing in cookies for the office, or I would be planning to go to one restaurant with my friend and we would last minute decide to go to a different one. And so everything that I had put in my calorie counter for the day would be wrong. You're not going to Applebee's, you're going to Hardee's. And so, like, the menus are different, the calorie counts are different. So, screw it. We might as well just throw the whole day out, start again tomorrow. We're going to binge. Here we go. Or, there's cookies in the break room. Nobody's looking. Weren't planning on it, but it's time to binge. Here we go. There's plenty for everyone, so this whole box is for me.
Oh, I love Kara. She's awesome. So listen, I want to thank you, Venters. I told you that once upon a time when I found Kara, she was at 6 subscribers, and thanks to you, Venters, we've got her up to 25. So if you haven't done so yet, go to 24 Karat's page and subscribe. Let's finish this one out. I think it's great what she's talking about here.
That kind of thing. I am thankful that these days unplanned eating doesn't scare me quite the way that it used to. But I will say that I am still having a hard time making a good choice when it comes to unplanned eating. Like, if I know that a meeting is going to run straight into lunchtime, a lot of times I'll pre-game. I'll eat a ton of food beforehand because what if I get hungry during the meeting and I can't eat? I still do that kind of thing. I still eat more cookies than I should because, oh, it's a treat. It's a free day. Here we go. I still, maybe go overboard at fast food restaurants simply because I can. And of course, another thing is that with intuitive eating, you're encouraged to listen to your body's cues. So if I wake up early in the morning, again, I'll overeat in the morning because I'm not quite very good at listening to my fullness cues yet. I do understand now that I do have fullness cues, but they're very easy to ignore when you've taught yourself to ignore them your whole life.
Ooh, she ended on a real good one there. They're very easy to ignore, they being your stop eating cues when you've been ignoring them your whole life. Guys, what makes her so amazing is she speaks on behalf of a lot of us. If you feel the words that come out of her lips and you feel like it describes you to a T, Let us know in the comments. Okay, this one is called Bad Diet Advice. So let's hear what she has to say here.
And I want to talk about bad diet advice. I really don't think most people give bad advice because they're trying to sabotage you. I don't think that there's people sitting around like rubbing their hands together like, oh, we're going to sabotage the overweight people by giving them bad advice. I think most bad diet advice starts off as good advice, but through misinformation or like ignorance, it gets telephoned into some warped version of itself. The more people retell it, the more warped it becomes until eventually it's something unusable. I also think that sometimes bad diet advice is only bad because it's reaching the wrong audience. Like, you can't give bodybuilding tips to somebody who's just starting lifting weights. It's not going to be effective. It's not going to work. It's the wrong audience. So that advice can really discourage somebody who thinks that they're doing it wrong simply because they haven't laid the groundwork for training yet. One such bad piece of advice is this idea of balanced meals. You want to lose weight? Just eat a balanced meal. This cereal, it's part of a balanced breakfast. If you grew up in the 90s, you might be able to relate on this one. Like, they'd tell you, this cereal is part of a balanced breakfast. And then at the end of the commercial, they would show you a few frames of that cereal in a bowl, posed alongside a couple pieces of fruit, maybe a piece of toast, some orange juice, all on this like perfect backdrop of a breakfast table. And that was balanced.
Now, you got to remember that was the breakfast of kids, not necessarily adults. So let's picture this breakfast, if you will. It's got a bowl of Fruit Loops, right? It's got a glass of milk or orange juice. Many times the commercial itself had both, right? And then what she's describing is sometimes it would show an orange and a banana on the side, and many times it had the ever-loved, beloved toast, right? Guys, this was for kids. After they ate that meal, and many times all they had was a bowl of cereal. We didn't really have toast to go with it, right? But after that, we would walk half a mile to school. When we got to school, we would play soccer or two-hand touch football, right? If you were one of the girls, maybe you played tetherball or two square, or heck, maybe you were out there with the boys as well, right? Then we had not one, not two, but three recess periods, followed up by a walk home if we didn't have after school sports. I'm telling you, we were walking machines back in the day. And we didn't have snacks. You had breakfast, and then the next meal was lunch at school.
But I heard that advice, just eat balanced meals, so frequently that it lost all of its meaning. I didn't know what a balanced diet was, so when people gave me that advice, just eat balanced meals, I would picture that breakfast cereal on that table. Like, okay, I gotta eat a whole bowl of cereal, 2 slices of toast, and I would be like, that's a ton of food. How am I supposed to lose weight if that's balanced? But see, that advice, eat a balanced meal if you want to lose weight, that is a perfect example of a good piece of advice that just reached the wrong audience. I was the wrong audience at the time because I had no idea what balanced nutrition was. I feel a lot more equipped to handle that now. And now I'm starting to realize that, yeah, that was really good advice. I feel better when I don't cut out any of the main food groups. I like to eat carbs, protein, and fats. I like to have meals that have all of those things in balance, and that's when I start feeling the best. When it comes to health and fitness, I think that education is a lot more important than just advice. You can give somebody advice, but you're never going to know if it actually hit the mark until that person either falls flat on their face or goes so hard that they burn out. I'm at a point right now where I'm not really taking much advice anymore. The only people who really comment about my health or fitness are people who don't really have my best interest at heart. And so in that case, I've turned a lot more toward just listening to my own body and letting it advise me on what I need to do during the day. The things that make me feel good, do more of that. The things that make me feel bad, less of that. It's so simple, like it's so dumb to have to put it in like those simplistic terms, but that's really where I've been finding my success lately. I wish more people realized that. I wish that more people were confident enough to actually go out and make their own rules rather than feeling like they have to follow these rules and this advice down to a T
Guys, if you love what she's saying, she's really describing what we do here at Walk Talk Vent. I'm telling you, we really do. We have such a good plan here, and I want you to join us. But before you leave, because I know some of you are going to leave right after this, I want you guys to hear one more video. This one's important for you guys that are going through a stall or a plateau, or maybe you've been stuck at a certain weight forever. I want you to hear one more video here, real quick. Guys, this is Dr. Arya Sharma, and what he's going to say in the next minute and 48 seconds is going to be really soothing for you to hear. Trust me.
The time is going to come when those numbers stops changing. It's called the weight loss plateau. It happens to everybody. Nobody loses weight till they disappear. So it doesn't really matter what the program is, and you've got to prepare people for that. So for people who are very focused on the numbers, what happens is that they'll often come back and say, you know what, doctor, I don't know what's going on. My diet has stopped working. I said, what do you mean? Well, he says, well, I'm still doing everything that I need to do, but those numbers are not changing anymore. And then I say, well, but your diet is still working. He said, yeah, but how can it be working if I'm not losing weight? I said, well, if you just went off this diet, you'll see that the diet is working, because the minute you stop the diet, that weight is going to come back up, and that's how it works. And then they feel somehow very dissatisfied, because most people think that if they can lose 2 pounds in the first month, they're going to lose 2 pounds in the second month, and then they'll keep losing 2 pounds till they reach whatever weight they can. And then their idea is, well, once I reach that weight, I can then just stop doing what I'm doing, or somehow I will magically sustain that weight. And that's where most people kid themselves. So the sooner you can get people to not focus on the numbers, the easier it is going to be to sustain them in that plateau phase, because really it gets boring. I mean, that's why, honestly, a lot of people will stop going to programs like Weight Watchers, because they say, I started and I was losing weight, and then I'd go to the weekly meetings and everybody would cheer and this would be great and there'd be weigh-ins. And now I keep going and nothing's happening to my weight. It's always the same. Some weeks it'll even be up a pound. And I'm still working hard to do it, but I'm not seeing any benefit. And so then they get frustrated and then they just stop going. And that's because their entire focus is on those numbers. If those numbers change, I'm doing well. If those numbers are not changing, then it's not working.
Okay, so let's process what he said, because it'll be life-changing even if you never listen to another minute of my videos, okay? In the future, from this point on, this is how you're going to tackle plateaus. You're going to say, thank goodness I'm doing my diet and exercise routine. Otherwise, this would have been a time in my life where I would have started gaining weight. So plateaus are no longer going to be a negative thing. You're going to start looking at them as a positive, okay? What he said is true. Even though we might be walking machines, nobody is guaranteed to lose 2 pounds every single week like clockwork. It shouldn't be like that, and it isn't like that. And we do need to focus on something other than the weight in order to lose the weight. So how about focusing on finding those shoes? Let's go for a walk. Good morning, America. No, let's start that over. Good morning, Venters. I think Good Morning America's already been taken. I hope you guys are doing well. And besides, we're in more than just America. Good morning, world. Good morning, Venter Nation. How are you guys? Man, what is today? Day 5? It is Wednesday. Happy hump day. It's still hump day for Venters, because in a 5-day week, of course, Wednesday is hump day, right? But in a 7-day week, Thursday is hump day. So if you're watching this Thursday, happy hump day for a 7-day week. I hope you guys are enjoying your walk. And yeah, let's just keep this bad boy going. You know, my thinking is your toughest days whenever starting a new exercise or diet plan or routine is usually your first handful of days. So if you're already on day 5 and you're still listening to this goofy guy, this head venter Jesse, then you've got a good chance for success. You know, sometimes, I don't know if you guys remember this from back in the day, but sometimes when you go and you exercise with weights, you know, where you're lifting, especially for the lower body with your strong leg muscles and stuff, sometimes you can actually get nauseous and physically sick from working out. Now, it's not a bad sickness like an illness would be, but it's just one of those things where, for some reason, when we work out our lower body, like doing squats and stuff, it is not uncommon for people to throw up afterwards. Not necessarily all the time, but it's not uncommon the first couple times you work out to actually get kind of physically ill, physically sick. And again, it's just one of those things where it's because you're using your leg muscles. Now, why do I mention that? Well, God, I don't know anybody in the world that's ever gotten physically sick from taking a walk unless they walk into some chemical spill or something, you know? So the reality is, if you can get by your first couple of days walking, you'll more than likely be totally fine and totally able to do this, you know? Look at this, guys. I just noticed this. I've noticed this before, but I just noticed it recently again. That looks like, that fountain looks like a horse taking a piss. Isn't that isn't that hilarious? I thought that was kind of cute when I just saw it, and I figured I'll flip the camera around and show you guys. So yeah, new walkers, if you're on day 5, congratulations. Let's keep this going, you know? Very much, let's keep this going. Good morning. That's that new person that I've seen walking. Looks like she's keeping going with it. I don't know how long she's been walking, but I know we've seen her a handful of days out of the last week or so. So good for her. You know, one of these days I'm going to have one of these walkers in the neighborhood walk up to me, and they're going to be like, "Hey, I talked to Stacy, and she said that you were a YouTube star, and I want you to know I'm a venter too." That would be cool, wouldn't it? That would be really, really neat. I'd really like to get the world walking, and that's where I need your guys' help. I need you guys to hit subscribe. I need you to hit the thumbs up button, and I need you to start telling your mom and dad that you want them to go on a walk with you. You know, if your parents are getting up there in age, maybe they're in their 50s, their 60s, or their 70s, I'm one of these guys that I like walking so much, and it's so low impact, right? I'm one of these guys, my thinking is, I don't care if you are 60 or 70 years old, let's get you out there walking. You know, GL is 68 years old. GL's been walking for more than 100 days in a row now. GL, if you're hearing my words, I hope you're having a wonderful walk today. If today's your day off from walking by some weird chance, I hope you enjoy your day. Still take care of still abide by the 2/3 rule, GL. So again, if you're brand new, the 2/3 rule states that if by some reason you have to take a day off of walking, the key is to still observe drinking water and avoiding sugar. And then here's the question you have to ask yourself. If I would have obeyed this 2/3 rule my whole life, how good of shape would I be right now? Well, I know the answer to that, ladies and gentlemen. You would be in such incredible shape that you would not be in a walking challenge because you would already be so far ahead of the game. It would be ridiculous. So again, let's go over our plan super quick, and then we'll talk about a fun little story that I heard today from our friends at the Good News Network. So again, we walk every single day, 7 days a week, and many and most of us that have been venters for a while are actually walking 2 or 3 walks a day. So we walk sometimes up to 21 times a week. Is that crazy and ridiculous or what? We also drink nothing but water every single day. We avoid sugar every single day. And there, ladies and gentlemen, is the quickest way to describe our plan to strangers that aren't familiar with it yet. Now, the fourth part of the rule, or the fourth part of the plan, is what we call the 2/3 rule, and it's what I consider the most important plan, because the reality is, no matter how diligent you are on your walk, there more than likely is going to become a time in the future where you can't walk for a particular day. Maybe you've got a ankle sprain. Maybe you've got a planned surgical routine, or maybe you just have a situation where it is literally going to be impossible for you to walk for a couple of days. When that happens, what do? Well, we could totally throw our diet and plan out the window and just start not walking, and we could start eating sugar, and we could start drinking coffees with sweets in it and a bunch of sodas, right? And we can ruin everything. Or what we could do is we could use the 2/3 rule to stay in good shape. Hey, I can't walk for 3 days in a row because I have this boot on my foot. Okay, but during those 3 or 4 days that boot is on your foot, you're still going to drink water and avoid sugar, so that in a week when you go back to the doctor and they remove when they remove that boot from your ass, when they remove that boot from your foot, right, you can go right back to walking, and you haven't skipped a beat, you haven't gained any weight. As a matter of fact, if you're in the process of losing weight, you might actually continue to lose weight despite the fact that you weren't able to walk for the last couple days. Okay? If you're in a situation where maybe you're in Mexico and you literally cannot drink the water for a week, okay. Well, I'm sure when you're down there, you can still avoid sugar, and you can still try to walk. I know this sounds crazy, but there are places in Mexico where the only safe thing to drink is Coca-Cola. I watched a video on this on YouTube, and it blew my mind. Coca-Cola has places in this Mexican town where they have a distribution center, and they've been given access by the powers that be in this Mexican town to get the best water sources. So they have this yummy water up high in the hills, and then they filter that water and they make their Coca-Cola products. And there are literally communities in Mexico where they don't have access to good, clean water, so it's literally safer for them to drink Coca-Cola. And the problem with this Coca-Cola that they drink is they literally have a situation where darn near everybody in this small town is obese, and darn near all of them have major tooth decay. And it's one of those things where in their area, guys, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, because if you avoid the sugar, you're going to be drinking the water, and the water is just plagued with different bacterias and problems that get the people sick. So again, if you're an American tourist and you're going down to Mexico and you have to skip the water for the sake of not getting sick, well, that's that 1 in a million situation that we're talking about, where you might have to avoid water, you know? And if you're in a place where the only safe thing to drink is Coke or alcohol, you know, hopefully you choose the Coca-Cola over the alcohol. You know, I don't think Mexico is a place where you want to necessarily get drunk. You might wake up in a Mexican jail, or you might wake up a victim of the cartels. Who knows? You got to be careful when you go down there. I remember when I was little, we would go down to Mexico to get a bag of candy for a penny. Hey, good morning. Hey, there's another walker. You know, there's one thing that you never know. When you're walking and people look out their window and they see that you're walking, and then they notice that there's a pattern that you're walking by their house daily, it gives them the wherewithal to say, you know, maybe I should start a walking routine. So again, the more people that walk in your neighborhood, I believe the safer it becomes. So if you have some neighbor friends that you've been thinking about taking walks with, make today that day where you knock on their door and see if they want to take a walk with you. And if it's a little too warm, see if you can schedule it out. I'd like to take a walk with you in the morning. Are you game for waking up at 6:30 or 7? And are you game for walking with me? And you'll be surprised. A lot of people probably will. And it's probably a great way to start a friendship. Oh, speaking of which, I think I should tell you my ideas real quick on partners and friends when it comes to working out. If you have a neighbor or a friend that wants to work out or walk with you, I think that's wonderful. But I think you should look at yourself as an army of one. You're a venting army of one. The reason I say that is partners have a way of letting us down, whether they do it on purpose, accidentally, or just a portion of life that's hit them, right? A lot of times people have to quit their workouts. I don't want you to be affected because your best friend no longer is able to work out with you. You know, maybe they found a new job, or maybe they just don't like walking. I also don't like the idea of you making your workout routine based on somebody else. Because again, you and I are talking about doing a walking routine not just for 90 days, but for the rest of your life. And it involves you walking 15 to 21 consecutive days so that we can literally make it part of your daily routine, where it's stuck into your daily routine. And that's just not going to happen if you're basing it on some neighbor or friend that doesn't really see walking the same way you do. You know, keep in mind, if you have 20 or 30 pounds to lose and your friend doesn't really care about their weight one way or another, they might be perfectly healthy right now, you know, you're putting a lot of pressure on them. And so my thinking is, if they walk with you, wonderful, but if they don't, I still will. Just put walk, talk, vent on, and let's get out the door and let's walk. Okay, so remember, let's obey by the 2/3 rule. And since we're in day 5, let's start obeying all the rules. So let's get you to the point where over the next 2 or 3 days, no more mental walks. Let's go ahead and get out the door, take a 10 or 15 minute walk with the knowledge that over the next upcoming week or so, we're gonna try to bump that up to maybe a 20 to 30 minute walk. And then after that, we'll go beyond, above and beyond. All right, let's get real quick to the story that I was talking about. So the story I was talking about today is from the Good News Network. There's a hunter named Max Fennell in Cache Creek Wilderness in Northern California who stumbled upon a donkey that was seemingly adopted by a herd of elk. By the way, donkeys make excellent watchdogs. I've seen donkeys taking care of animals. They're not necessarily good watchdogs when it comes to human beings jumping in someone's backyard. But if you have sheep or, you know, little goats or something, and let's say you live out in the wilderness where it's not uncommon for coyotes and wolves to kind of get into your backyard and steal your chickens or kill your sheep or your goats, right? Donkeys actually make world-class guard dogs, so to speak. And there's videos of donkeys grabbing, God, you won't believe this, not only is there pictures of them grabbing coyotes and literally just carrying them off the farm, but there's also videos of them catching hyenas. You know, hyenas have like the strongest bite in the animal kingdom. Very, very dangerous animals. But man, you don't want to mess with a donkey. A donkey will kick a hyena's butt, and I'm not joking. There are videos of donkeys playing the role of watch guards, and it is amazing. They literally will bite animals by their neck and lift them out of the area. It is comical, but you can see just how strong and powerful good old donkeys are. So anyway, what's the deal with this donkey? Well, this donkey was a lost pet donkey that was known as Diesel by its parents, Dave and Terry Drury of Clear Lake, California. Okay, the couple lost this animal back in 2019. Something happened while they were walking the animal. It got spooked and ran off in the wilderness. They tried for many, many weeks and many, many months to recover Diesel the lost donkey, but they couldn't find him. Finally, this hunter, Max Fennel, found this donkey, and it was adopted by a herd of elk, and apparently they like to say it was living its best life, because he was saying that the donkey and the elk seemed absolutely happy as all heck. And I just thought that was a great story. Now, technically this donkey was a pet, but because he got lost 5 years ago, and apparently the donkey's about 8 years now, and I guess donkeys can live to be up into their 30s or 40s. So apparently, since the donkey's been with this elk family for so long, Dave and Terry Drury have decided to let it live its best life with its new family of elk. So I thought that was an excellent story, that sometimes life goes on whether we like it or not. And they thought this donkey was dead, but apparently this donkey is living and doing very, very well. You know, based on the story I just told you earlier, that they've been known to take on jackals and they've been known to take on coyotes, I have a funny feeling even if a wolf were to attack one of the young elks, I have a feeling those elks have a superstar security team in that donkey. Now that's interesting. You know, the other day I was showing you a bear that lifted up a cone and kind of walked on. In other words, it kind of had that human feature. We've talked about the dog in the neighborhood that crosses the crosswalk to go visit its boyfriend, right? That to me is kind of a human characteristic, you know? And could you imagine if the elk, because I'm sure the first time they came across the donkey, they probably didn't necessarily accept it into the family, right? But I think we all know donkeys are very stubborn. They were probably trying to walk away and the donkey's like, you know, following it like crazy. And finally they said, darn it, he's not gonna eat us. We'll let him hang out with us. And then they slowly but surely probably found out that, man, this donkey's tough. He knows how to fend off wild animals. And the elk probably made a decision, hey, we can ditch this donkey, or we could use this donkey to our advantage. So real quick, what do you think it is? Do you think it's a situation where they just realized the donkey's not trying to eat them and they slowly became friendly with the donkey? Hey, good morning. Or do you think it's a situation where maybe they came to a realization that, hey, this donkey is a legit defense team, that if we add him to our herd, he's gonna keep us safe from the wild animals? Because I have a feeling it's a little bit of all of the above. I bet that donkey was stubborn at first and wouldn't leave their side. And then all of a sudden, the donkey just became part of their little herd community. Really, really neat little story, don't you think? So, you know, here's to you, Diesel. Tip of the cap, right? Let's hope you have a wonderful life. Hey, there's Stacy. Let's hope you have a wonderful, wonderful life. In case you're brand new, Stacy is a cancer survivor that is one of my fellow walkers here in the neighborhood. And she has walked off 138 pounds and with a plus sign, because that was what she told us 3 months ago, right? So for all we know, she's lost a couple more pounds, but basically, she was the person that told me that sometimes when you carry excess weight, it can make you more susceptible to cancers. And sometimes when you're holding excess weight, it actually serves in feeding those cancers. So if you can get rid of that excess weight, not only does it make your prognosis for the future better, but it also starves out some of those cancers. So if you are in remission, you can hopefully stay in remission. And by the way, when you meet Stacy, she is just a ball of energy. And just to think that over the last handful of years, she had a situation where she could have been taken from the earth. I'm really glad that she was able to get her health going back in the right direction. And that's what I want for you guys. I want a situation where you guys have a plan going forward and forever. And I'm telling you, I don't care what the diet is, I don't care what the exercise plan is, they all have 3 components that are the same. They all say they want you to stay completely hydrated with water. They all say they want you to have movement or walking as part of your life. And they all say for you to avoid processed sugars. So my thinking is, hey, if every single diet swears by these mantras and everybody that actually follows the diet ends up losing weight, maybe it's not because of the special foods they're eating. Maybe it's because of those 3 basic components that are a commonality in every single diet and exercise. And so what I decided to do a couple years back is to put it in motion. I was already walking daily. I had seen some videos on how the best way to get your chest and stomach muscles to pop out and show isn't by push-ups and sit-ups, it's by drinking water and avoiding sugar. So I already had the walking routine down, I already was doing some push-ups, but I was never quite able to get my muscles to get that pop look that guys want. But man, I'll tell you what, when I quit eating sugar, I quickly got down to not only 155 pounds, but after I stopped my diet, I actually kept shrinking down to 149 pounds. And at that point, I was freaking out and I started eating sugars again just to get out of the 140s, because again, where a lot of you people would love to get down to 150 or 140 pounds, that's not where I like to get. Even here at 160 pounds, I don't know if you can notice, but my neck starts to get a little skinny. You know, it makes this head filled with brains look a little bit bigger, you know, and you get to a point where you're like, I think that's a little too skinny. So again, if some of you guys are really starting to drop weight, you guys might have that same situation I do, where you say, you know what, I don't want to get too small. Hey, by the way, not only do the venters slowly but surely listen to my advice, it's not something people just take my advice from day one. A lot of times they just start with a walk, right? But I've been taking a lot of your guys' advice too. Started eating the skinny pop, right? Rather than Doritos. Started buying the whole grain bread with 45 calories a slice rather than my traditional white bread with 70 calories a slice. So what that does is it makes it where every time I eat a sandwich with 2 slices of bread, it's almost like I took off a slice, because 2 slices of white bread equates to 140 calories, where 2 slices of this whole grain bread equates to 90 calories. So it's almost like having a sandwich with 1 piece of bread missing. But yet it still tastes delicious to me, you know? The reason I mention all these things that I'm doing is because I took some more advice from you venters the other day, and I decided to get that PB2 or PB Max or whatever. And what that is it's a peanut butter scented, because it doesn't really taste like peanut butter. It's kind of like essence of peanut butter, or like what a peanut butter ghost would taste like, right? But it's basically protein powder that I can add to my oatmeal, or I can add to this, that, and the other. And protein, a lot of times people think, hey, protein's going to help you build muscle. But what protein really does better than anything else, apparently, is it sends signals from your gut and stomach to your brain that you're full a little bit quicker, and apparently it lasts a little bit longer than not eating it. So again, if you have your son's protein powder above the fridge in the kitchen and he's ignoring it, why don't you experiment with maybe putting a little scoop of that protein powder into your oatmeal? Now, the problem with protein drinks, in my opinion, is a lot of times when you put them in a blender, they're chocolate or vanilla flavored. And what they could do is they could make it where all of a sudden you're craving sweets. So again, if you can go to the store and get the PB protein, the one good thing about that is it doesn't really taste sweet at all. Again, when you mix it, you're thinking, hey, this is peanut butter. Trust me, it doesn't really taste like peanut butter. It tastes like what peanut butter should taste like if it were still alive, if that makes sense. It's like the vaccine of peanut butters, right? Because it smells like peanut butter, but it's just not. Anyway, enough with the peanut butter. The main thing I want to let you guys know is that not only do I want you guys to be open to the tips and stuff that I suggest of you, but I want you to know that I'm very much open to the tips that you guys suggest to me. If you really love bagels, one thing Sherry Ann noticed that I wasn't aware of until she pointed it out was that you can go get the Philadelphia cream cheese that we all know and love, or you can get the whipped cream cheese, which is a handful of calories less. So imagine if it's really in your nature to have a bagel on your way to work every day. Maybe instead of the cream cheese this week, maybe you can get that whipped cream cheese and save yourself a handful of calories. And I know this sounds crazy, but if instead of that bagel, if you could have 2 pieces of the bread that I'm suggesting, right, the whole grain bread, with your whipped cream cheese, you might be able to make a healthier version of your breakfast. I'm a big proponent of oatmeal. If you go down and get a generic box of 12 oatmeal packets, you could probably get those for under $2. Those 12 oatmeal packets equate to 12 breakfasts that you can eat. Nobody likes plain oatmeal. That's why if you can make that your breakfast of choice in the mornings, what you'll find is that after 2 or 3 weeks, your stomach pains will dissipate. You know, right now, if you're 30, 40, 50 pounds overweight and you're brand new to our channel, you're probably waking up in the morning with painful stomachs, like, oh my God, I'm so hungry, I'm starving. But right now, what you're used to doing is waking up and eating something. I think it would be great if you could get to the point where you wake up and take your walk, and then when you come home, you could guzzle a glass of water and then eat a boring bowl of oatmeal. And believe me, guys, after 4, 5, 6 days, you're going to get to the point where those hunger pains dissipate, and you're going to get to the point where instead of eating oatmeal, you're going to be okay with occasionally skipping a breakfast. I'm not into intermittent fasting. What I'm into doing is shrinking down your hunger to the point where you don't always need to eat. And if you're not hungry, that's the best time to skip a meal. A little bit different than intermittent fasting, where you're actually challenging yourself to skip meals. In my situation, guys, I haven't been hungry at all because I don't skip meals on purpose. I do it because if you're not hungry, why force yourself to eat? You know, we've been watching a lot of videos lately on intuitive eating, right? And have you noticed all the intuitive eaters talk about knowing when your body's hungry and knowing when your body's no longer hungry? Well, that's damn near impossible for people like you and I when we're struggling with our weight. We don't know how to tell when we're hungry or not. We only notice that we always have food in our mouth, right? So what you can do is slowly but surely shrink down your hunger, and the best way to do that is to get rid of the Captain Crunch and the Frosted Mini Wheats and exchange those for boring cereals. What do you mean, Jesse? What I mean is go grab a box of Corn Flakes, not Frosted Flakes, but Corn Flakes. Or go get a box of Cheerios, not Honey Nut Cheerios, but Cheerios. Well, wait a minute, Jesse. I know that you've been doing this for a long time, but I'm brand new and I don't know if I can jump from Captain Crunch to plain Cheerios. Okay, that's where we could still do a baby step. Let's go ahead and get the Honey Nut Cheerios, which I think we can all agree it's a little bit better than the Captain Crunch, right? And then what we'll do is we'll slowly but surely go from the Honey Nut Cheerios down to plain Cheerios or plain Frosted Flakes. And what you'll soon notice once you're on your 3rd, 4th, 5th day of kind of cutting down on sugar, you'll start to notice that plain, boring things like Cheerios and Corn Flakes actually do have a tiny bit of sugar in them. And believe it or not, you'll be able to taste it. It's a little bizarre. If you really want to get rid of your evening chocolate ice cream, what I recommend you do is buy a bunch of bananas, get yourself some ice cubes, get yourself a blender, and get yourself some milk or some oat milk or some almond milk, right? And what I recommend you do is put that in a blender without sugar, so it'll be a little dull, and use that to wean off the chocolate ice cream and the donut in the evening. I'm a big believer in banana smoothies. I believe that they help you get off of ice cream and other harder to get off of desserts. All right, quick battery change. You know, I noticed by hitting a couple more patches of shade during my walk, I'm able to make the battery last a handful of seconds longer. And you know, it only takes about a minute or two before you've walked quite a distance. So one of the things that I recommend for new walkers that's really motivating for me is if you've walked on a straight path for even a minute or two, take a stop, look behind you, and you'll notice that you've really walked quite a distance. And it amazes me that over the course of 15 or 20 minutes, how far you can walk. You know, a lot of times our favorite restaurants are just right outside our neighborhood. And you and your family might have a tradition of going to that restaurant once, twice, 3 or 4 times a month even, right? And if you can get to the point where the family drives up in the car, but maybe you walk there, God, that might be a great way to earn your meal at the restaurant. Wouldn't that be cool, just to start walking to your favorite restaurant? If your gym is 1.5 miles down the street, why not take a walk to that gym? By the time you get there, your muscles are warmed up and ready to go. And then after your workout with your weights or what have you, maybe you walk home. What a great way to put 3 miles in on your schedule, right? And still get a workout. And in case you're wondering, is walking good for my workout? Guys, walking's excellent for your workout because after about 20 minutes, your body starts to burn fat. That's why it's so important for you guys to try after a week or so to get to the point where your daily walk is maybe closer to half an hour. Because I'm a firm believer that it takes about 15 or 20 minutes before you start burning fat. And so if you walk for 15 or 20 minutes and then progress past that to a 30-minute walk, you can really start burning fat each and every day. You know, one of our venters, Lily, kind of left me a question yesterday saying, what do I do about this dreaded plateau that I'm going through? And that's why, Lily, I wanted to put up a video for all of us to watch on inflammation. If you've quit everything from sugar to all these other things that can inflame you, but maybe you're still drinking your morning cup of coffee or two, why don't you do a little test for inflammation? And just over the next couple of weeks, why don't you see if you can ditch that coffee? If what the people on the YouTube videos that we watch together are saying is true, that coffee is a little acidic, it probably wouldn't hurt to take it out of your daily routine and see if it has an effect on your weight. Similarly, you might have a situation where maybe you have a little bit of a sensitivity to dairy or gluten. Why not try to exclude it from your diet just for a handful of days or maybe a week or two to see if it has any positive effect? And if it doesn't have any effect, you probably don't have any sensitivities to it. And so therefore, you're probably just in a normal plateau that it might take 2 or 3 weeks to walk through it, but we will do it together. And speaking of together, half of us venters still have the ability to keep going. So if you have the ability to keep going, do some extra credit. And we'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a beautiful day.